first. Earlier this week, I spoke of how sections of the media were giving their preferred political candidates essentially a free pass. And that was a direct reference to the lack of rigour that was applied to the Victorian government over their shameful mishandling of the coronavirus. I said then that fake news was not just the stuff that's manufactured, but it's what is deliberately overlooked by mainstream media organisations. Unfortunately, there's now something that's even worse, and it likely affects every single one of us. Now, most people today get a lot of their information from social media. You know who they are. These are the tech giants like Twitter and YouTube and Facebook. These companies are also some of the biggest censors of news when they don't want you to know about it. This is flagrant censorship that would make even Kim Jong-un, you know, he's the North Korean dictator, blush with embarrassment. Take today's revelations about how Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden has been exposed as being complicit in his son's dodgy business activities. This is an important story on the cusp of a US presidential election. It was broken by the New York Post. And it talks about how a presidential candidate has repeatedly lied about his own actions. And it also exposes how his son, who happens to be an unskilled drug addict, was able to parlay his daddy's position as VP into a lucrative corporate career. Here are some facts. Biden's son was appointed to the board of a Ukrainian energy company, and he was paid around $65,000 per month, despite having no experience for that honour. He then used that position to connect other representatives of that company with the then Vice President of the United States, who happened to be his dad. Now, the company that Mr. Biden Jr. was appointed to was also under investigations for allegations of fraud. And Daddy Biden, by his own admission, threatened to withhold a $1 billion loan to the Ukrainian government unless the prosecutor of that case was sacked. So what do you think happened? Well, it's no coincidence that a little while later, the investigation was dropped, the prosecutor was fired, and the loan went through. Papa Biden repeatedly denied any knowledge of his son's activities or that he played any part in them. We now know that to be a lie. However, the tech giants I mentioned earlier, they considered this an inconvenient truth, so they've refused to link to the story exposing their preferred presidential candidate as a phony. In short, these tech oligarchs are trying to rig the US election by denying access to the truth. It's simply shameful behaviour, and it's downright dangerous for democratic ideals around the world. Now, I understand that some of you may be thinking, hey, this is just a US thing. Why should we be worried about it? Well, I'm going to tell you, you should be very worried, because if these oligarchs are prepared to do this in the land of the free in an attempt to rig the biggest election of them all, then they can and likely will do the very same thing to shape an election outcome here in Australia. Access to truth is more important now than it ever has been, and that requires a fearless free press and distribution platforms that are not the modern-day equivalents of Pravda. Now, if the digital giants will not accept that responsibility, it might be time to break up the cosy oligarchy that they currently enjoy.